Welcome to Built, Not Burnt Out, the podcast where we explore what it really takes to build a strong body, a resilient mind, thriving relationships, and a meaningful life. I'm your host, Melissa Peterson, attorney, health coach, fitness instructor, mom of 10, and the founder of the Becoming Method. Today, I'm joined by Cory Young. 20 years ago, a spinal cord injury left Cory a quadriplegic. Instead of allowing that experience to define him, he used it as a catalyst for personal growth, resilience, and purpose. Today, Cory's a life coach, mentor, public speaker, and mindset expert who helps people improve their relationship with themselves, uncover limiting beliefs, develop emotional intelligence, and create meaningful goals that lead to lasting change. In this episode, we're talking about resilience, self worth, trauma, relationships, emotional intelligence, and why the quality of your life is often determined by the quality of your relationship with yourself. Cory, welcome to Built, Not Burnt Out. Why don't
Thank
you
you.
tell?
Thank,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited. So I think I jumped the gun. I'm so excited. So yeah,
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you here. And
yeah,
why don't you just start wherever, just about what happened with you?
yep. So at the I started in a nutshell when I was a kid. I was very athletic. I loved very extreme sports. So growing up, I raced motocross. I was a boxer. We had horses, rode horses, skateboarded, played rugby, everything. I was very into extreme stuff, but my passion was surfing. And I started surfing at the age of 10 and I got right into it and I was winning a few surfing competitions. I wasn't like heaps good or anything, but pretty good. Um, but my dream was always to move from South Australia where I lived to the Gold Coast because it had the best waves. And I fulfilled that dream at the age of 16. I moved to the Gold Coast for surfing and I was living the dream. And I'm just going to be honest, I was living exactly that. Like if you've ever had a dream in your life and you fulfilled it and you're living it, it just feels amazing. So I was living on the Gold Coast. I was traveling everywhere all around there, surfing every day, working in construction, and went on a few trips. And then I just turned 20, and I went on a trip to Bali, Indonesia, and had the best time surfing, time of my life. And 25 days later, 25 days after my 20th birthday, yeah, I broke my neck surfing. So, yeah, it was pretty traumatic. So, yeah.
I'm sorry. That's awful. So what
Yeah.
happened after that?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the accident. So, um, if that's is that cool? So, what
Yes.
happened was, like I said, I was working in construction, and my boss is a really cool guy, and he called me on a Sunday night, and he said, "Cory, tomorrow's a public holiday on a Monday. I know, but do you mind just driving 100 kilometers north to a job site on a hospital?" Because we're really behind on a job and we want you to complete it. So I got up early that Monday morning, drove to the job site, was working away, and something pretty random. I was having a conversation with this bloke, and we're getting along really well. And we said, I've done a lot of extreme sports, did this and that. What kind of injuries have you had? Being blokes, that's what we talked about. And I said to him, I said, I've had a lot of like injuries, but I've never actually broken a bone in my body. And he's like, "Oh, really? That you're very lucky." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I bent down and I said, "Touch wood." And when you say touch wood, that never happens. So I finished working that day on that job site, which, like I said, was a hospital. And being a surfer, the first thing I did, I drove straight home to my favorite beach. The waves were only a meter high. Everyone usually thinks they're huge. This day, they're only about a meter high. Not the best waves, but being a surfer, I just wanted to be out there. So I went out there, I caught a few waves, and then I'll explain the wave that I caught that I had my accident on. So I remember the wave perfectly. I was sitting on my board, this wave was coming. I started paddling for the wave. And then being a surfer, like you look left, you look right, you work out which is the best way to go. And left looked really good. So I got to my feet. I was surfing along the wave, gone really, really fast. And then as the wave was about to just crash, like all at once, I did something what we call a floater. And it's where you pop up on top of the wave, you float across the top, and then you drop back down. But as I was floating across the top, I slipped off my board and I slipped off head first. And it's just like you've seen people diving into a swimming pool. So I was in the exact same position. So I was in the diving position with my hands out like that from the top of the wave and just hit the water, hit the sand, broke my neck, and I was instantly paralyzed. Um,
Wow.
just instantly paralyzed. Yeah. And so what happened from there, like, because I was instantly paralyzed, I literally couldn't even shrug my shoulders. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't shrug my shoulders. And at the time, I didn't know anything. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know exactly what was wrong. I was like freaking out. I was a bit stressed. I was like, because you can imagine I'm like floating face down in the water and I'm floating there. My body's lifeless. I'm floating face down. I'm like, something's not right here. I can't get out of the water. I can't move. Something's not right. And naturally, I started running out of air. And I got to the point where my lungs were burning. And I was like, man, I can't hold on any longer. And just as I was about to like kind of black out, a wave rolled me over just enough to get my lips out of the water. So the wave rolled me over and I got my lips out of the water and I just went and then back down again. And so I'm face down again and I'm laying there. I'm like, damn, this is it. I'm gonna die. And
Wow.
once again, my lungs started burning and I held my mouth shut as much as I could to stop water coming in. But I just got to the point where that was it. I couldn't hold on any longer. I had to, gasp for air. So, um, just before I did that, I was like, this is it. I'm going to drown. I'm going to die. Kind of come to terms with it. And so I think because I thought I was going to die, I started reminiscing on my life. Like they say, your life flashes behind you, before your eyes. But for me, it was just like, I'm going to die. Started thinking about my life. And then I fought just a little bit more. And I was like, nah, that's it. I'm going to keep fighting. But I couldn't fight anymore. And just as I was blacking out, a lone Japanese tourist who happened to be walking along that beach saw me, ran in, grabbed me by the shoulders, and flipped me over. And I'm screaming at him. I'm swearing at him. I'm screaming at him, like, get me out of the water, get me out of the water. And he didn't understand a word I was saying, apparently. But my friend, her name was Caroline. She's a really good surfer and she was a nurse. She saw what happened and she come racing over with another guy. She suspected that I had a spinal injury. So she held my head and my neck, and the guy held my feet. And using the water, they just floated me in the water up onto the beach. And then once I reached the beach, I was like, I was still conscious. And I was conscious, obviously, the whole time when I was like drowning or thought I was drowning. And while I was on the beach, I just started like screaming, like, call my girlfriend, call my girlfriend. I don't know how, but I gave her my phone number. And they called my girlfriend. And I remember her coming down the beach. I was still laying on my back on the beach, and the paramedics were there and they were tending to me. And I just heard her screaming, just blood curdling scream. And then I just blacked out. And from that moment, I blacked out. And apparently, from the beach, I got taken to a hospital, a nearby hospital, and they did some MRI scans and CAT scan or whatever kind of scans they do. And they're like, "Yep, he's broken his neck, the bones, and he's injured his spinal cord." So what they had to do is they put me in a helicopter. But before they put me in a helicopter, they told my family to kiss me goodbye because my body was in so much shock. It was shutting down and everything, due to the injury.
Wow.
They said, you better kiss him goodbye because there's a really high chance he's not going to make the flight. So half my family kissed me goodbye, the other half didn't. Um, yeah, and then what happened was they put me in a helicopter and they flew me back to the hospital where I was working that day. Like
Wow.
it is just uncanny. And that hospital turned out to be the Princess Alexander Spinal Unit. So earlier that day, as a fully able, very athletic young man, I was working in construction, building the extension of the Princess Alexander Spinal Unit. And that afternoon, I was being flown back as a paralyzed, disabled young man, you know, nearly dying on death's door, um, to be a patient. So it's like
Wow.
just uncanny. Like it was just crazy. Like I know I'm smiling about it now, but at the time it was just hectic. Like it was just crazy. So, did you want me to go more into what happened a little bit
Yeah,
or?
yeah. Like, so you get to the hospital, what happened?
Yep. So I woke up for the whole helicopter flight. I was out, but I do remember waking up because they were drilling into my head, and I'll see if you can see the scars still. But you can see the scar there. There's a little white dot on the side if you look very closely. See that white dot
Yeah.
near my thumb? So that's
Yes.
where on both sides, they drilled holes into my skull, and they had a contraption that looks exactly like these headphones. And what they do is they drill it into your head and then you lay flat on your back for 3 months. And off the top
Wow.
here, there was like a rope, and the rope goes off the end of the bed and attaches to a weight, and it was the equivalent of a 10-pound bowling ball. So in other words, I'm in spinal traction. My neck's in spinal traction for 3 months. So yeah, I had to lay there flat on my back, 3 months, my neck just stretched, just waiting for the bones to align and heal. So that was my life for the next 3 months. I was in intensive care on life support for about, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. I get confused with that one. Yeah, all machines keeping me alive and everything like that. It was very touch and go. They didn't know if I'd survive. And then at about the 3 week mark, that's when I can start remembering. They took me from the intensive care unit to the normal ward. They put me on the ward, and I was awake from then on. And then at about the 5 week mark, all the doctors and nurses come racing in. I developed a blood clot that went from my hip all the way to my toes because I was just laying flat. So that was very touch and go. I nearly died from a blood clot at the 5 week mark. And then over that 3 months, I had lots of visitors. Like it was very convenient for all my mates that worked on a job site. They were right there. They could come and visit me. That was the only positive thing. I had a lot of friends and family, lots of support. I was very lucky. Some people in there had no one. So, yeah, very lucky to have that support of my girlfriend, her family. My parents flew up to Queensland. And at about the 10 week mark of being in spinal traction, the doctor came in and he said, Corey, he was a spinal doctor. He said, Corey, look, you've been paralyzed for 10 weeks. You are aware of that. Yep, I was aware. But I didn't quite understand because I was laying in the bed. I didn't have to use my arms. I didn't have to use my legs. So I knew I was paralyzed, but I didn't quite understand what that really meant because I was just laying there. I didn't have to do anything. So I knew I couldn't move or feel very good, but I still didn't quite understand what it meant. So when he came in and he said to me, look, it's been 10 weeks now. Usually by now, if you're going to get a lot of movement back, like you would have got it by now. And he said, I'm not saying you're never going to walk again, you might, but he said, from this moment forward, he goes, there's a high chance that you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. And I was devastated because that's when reality
Oh,
kind of hit me. So I was laying there and I was bawling my eyes out, crying. And then, yeah, my dad came in. The doctor walked out. My dad came in, and I said to my dad, I said, "Look, the doctor just told me, what's really going on. I can't move much. I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life." And I said, "I don't know what to do. Can you please turn the TV on and just give me, 10 minutes just to get my thoughts and all this?" So my dad turned the TV on, and it was something called the Channel 10 News. And as soon as he turned the TV on and left the room, there was a news bulletin. And that news bulletin came on. And it was like, news flash, rah, rah. And what it was, they were explaining that two young surfers from the Gold Coast where I lived had just been killed in a car accident. And it turned out to be my friends. So in
oh,
within
wow.
5 minutes, yeah, it was crazy. So within 5 minutes, I'd literally just had the doctor tell me as a 20-year-old young man that I'm completely paralyzed. A high chance I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. And just found out that my two friends that surf had just been killed in the same car accident. And I remember just laying there, like not being able to move, trying to process the emotion. I still remember it was just painful. Like I just don't, yeah, it was a nightmare. It was, yeah, it was horrible. So anyway, I
Wow.
couldn't go to, yeah, I couldn't go to their funeral, obviously, because I was still in traction for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, so I had to deal with all that. And then it got to the day where they took the spinal traction out of my head. They undid the screws, took that out, and they said, Corey, we're going to put you in a wheelchair for the first time. And at that time, my dad was there. And when I was laying in the bed, they put this big sling underneath me because they used this big lifter to lift me out the bed. And so they put the sling under me, they attached the lifter, and I was a bit excited to get out of bed. Yeah, after 3 months. So what happened was, as they lifted me up, I just looked down and I just saw my legs and they're just like dangling. And that's when the real reality hit me. It was just like,
Oh,
I
wow.
remember just looking at my legs and they had these white stockings on to help, with the blood clot and prevent more blood clots. I remember just looking at them. I'm just like, move. In my mind, I'm just like, move, do something. Like, just come on. Let's like, now's the time. Like, if you're going to do it now. And obviously, at the time, my arms didn't work that well either. But just at that point, I looked over at my dad and he was just white as a ghost. He was just like, yeah, I've never seen him like that in my life. And he just was looking at my legs and I'm just like, yeah. Anyway, from that moment forward, my dad literally couldn't string a sentence together for the next 3 or 4 years. And he was always by my side, like my mum, my sister. Everyone was absolutely fantastic. But my dad, he couldn't even talk. He couldn't speak properly for the next 3 years. It really affected him. And so anyway, they put me in a wheelchair. And that's when the hard work begins because there's no waiting, nothing. It's straight to rehab. And I was like a brand new baby. Like I couldn't lift my head up, couldn't support my head, couldn't feed myself, dress myself. The first time I had to get dressed, it took me about 4 hours to put two socks on, a pair of shorts, and a t-shirt. And they just let
Wow.
me lay on the bed, just struggle until I did it. And it's like, you need to do this. And yeah, it took me about 4 hours. I'm not joking. Yeah. And then from that moment forward in rehab, I had to learn how to use a wheelchair. I started getting more movement back. So I started getting a lot of feeling in my body. I still can't walk or stand up. But my arms started moving a lot more. So my arms move. They don't work 100%, but my hands, like that's my hands. I can only move that finger like that. That's all I got.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, at the time, I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool," but I can't do much with it, if that makes sense. But this hand just is closed like that, like nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. So so in that time in the rehab, like I learned how to use a wheelchair. So when you're paralyzed too, my bladder and my bowel are paralyzed, like they don't function at all. So I had to learn how to catheterize myself. And being in, or anyone, for anyone, it's very traumatic. If you have to stick a catheter, which is a, 30 centimeter tube into any part of your body, it's going to stress anyone out. So for about 2 weeks, I had to do about 7 of those a day. Every
Wow.
time I had to go to the toilet and catheterize myself, I just threw up everywhere. I just threw up. It was that because by then I had a lot of feeling. It was a horrible experience. So you're just doing everything at once. So what happened was within that first year, I went home. We moved back to the beach, where I used to live on the Gold Coast, and I was on top of the world. Like, yeah, I'm not sure if you heard of this before, but it does happen. Like, because I'd cheated death so much, my friends had died, and I nearly died multiple times. I was on this high. I was on this euphoric high, and I was just like, I've cheated death, and I felt bulletproof and excited, and I was like, oh my God, and I mean, it wasn't reality, but yeah, that's just how it was for the next 12 months. And the doctors were warning my family and they were saying, like, look, we've seen this before. Reality is going to hit him like a ton of bricks. It's only a matter of time, and you better be ready for it. And I was like, no,
Wow.
I'm going to be fine. And at the time, I was having heaps of like health problems, like bladder infections, bowel problems, and still trying to learn how to use a wheelchair and everything. And then it got exactly a year to the day later. So the anniversary of my accident. So I had my accident. So it wasn't 20 years that I've been paralyzed. I've been paralyzed for 28 years. And I had my accident on the 25th of May, 1998. And exactly a year to the day, a year later, the 25th of May, 1999, I was down the beach with my girlfriend. And on the way to the beach, I was perfectly fine, happy, everything like that. We got to the beach. The waves at one of my favorite places were just perfect. I was watching the waves, and then my girlfriend kind of looked at me and she's like, "Are you all right, Corey?" And as soon as she said that, I lost it. I lost the plot. And yeah, I just had a massive panic attack. Reality just hit me like a ton of bricks. I just went completely numb, lost the plot, ended up in a mental health ward. They
Oh,
didn't know what to do with me, and I thought I'd just lost my mind. Um, yeah. And so for the next 4 or 5 years, I was I had severe anxiety, depression, suicidal, like you name it, it just hit me like a ton of bricks reality. And I was just like, couldn't deal with it, couldn't cope. And yeah, I was a mess for the next
wow.
3 or 4 years. So yeah.
Well, obviously that didn't stick. So what happened that changed you?
Yeah. So I got to the point after that 3 or 4 years, I was just sick and tired. I was tired of being depressed, anxious, being this way. And like I said, that's a long time to be. Like I literally, for 3 years or nearly 4 years, all I did was sat in my unit like this, my t-shirt over my face in the corner of the house and sat there like this. I don't know why I did it, but I just couldn't move, just depressed, didn't want to see the beach. But it got to one day and I'd already planned like taking my own life. I wrote a note and it got to the day and I remember sitting in the shower and I was sitting in there for about 3 hours and the water was just running over my head and I was just sitting there and I was like, today's the day. Like you need to make a decision, Corey. Like you can't keep living like this. You got to do something. Today's the day. And I obviously thought I was going to take my own life, but what happened was is I was just like, and then all of a sudden I just had a mindset shift. I was like, all right, you know what? Today's the day. Today's the day you're going to make the decision to do the best you can with what you have, and you're going to do whatever it takes to get better. And I think at that moment, I'd realized that I couldn't physically get better. I wasn't going to walk again, but I realized the only way I could get better and navigate life was to be mentally better. Does that make sense? Like to work on my
Yes.
mindset and everything like that. So I got dressed, I got out the shower, and I just jumped on the phone and I rang every single doctor, every single psychologist, counselor, and I was like out of control. Like I'm not joking. I think I was seeing like 3 or 4 different counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists every single week for like years. And, my goal was just to make it through to the next day and just do whatever
Mhm.
it took to make it through to the next day. So my life for the next 2 years was just that, like just doing whatever it took for me not to take my life to make it to the next day and get the tools and the mindset, yeah, to keep going. So, yeah.
So then what did you do? You obviously broke away from, just existing until the next day.
Yeah. So what happened in that time? My wife, I'm sorry, my girlfriend and I, we got married. We moved back to South Australia in 2003. We got divorced. Um, yeah, like it was very hard on her, very hard on me. It was just, yeah, I don't blame her. Anyway, and then from that moment forward, I just set some very small goals. And one of my earliest goals that I remember, and this is how you'll hear how bad I was, like in such a dark place. Do you remember the 2000 Olympic Games? There was a young girl, and I can't think of her name now, but she was only 10, and she was going to be the singer for the Olympic Games. And my first goal after my accident was to watch this young girl sing, hoping that she would screw up and make a mistake. That's how dark a place I was. Like, so that was my first goal. Anyway, her name was Nikki Webster. That's right. And I remember watching the Olympic Games, and she didn't screw up. She did amazing. I was like, damn, like I'm gonna have to get some better goals. Anyway, from there, I just set little goals. And one of my goals is right, all right, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make it to 50 years old. Um, and then I was reading books on personal development, just doing whatever and just setting little goals. In that time, I also was studying drug and alcohol. I started studying, so I started studying disability, drug and alcohol, mental health. But at the same time, I was like taking drugs and drinking and writing myself off. Like by 10 a.m. every morning, I was written off, drunk, high, on the kitchen table, passed out, living with my mum, just an absolute mess, got banned from driving. But I just kept on with that personal development. I just kept on with that, yeah, shifting my mindset and just getting better, if that kind of makes sense. Like, yeah.
Yes. So, so when did you come to the point where you were better enough where you started mentoring other people?
Yep. So in 2007, um, I got a job, and I was working for an insurance company, and my role was to go and do talks on water safety. So everyone sees the signs where it says no diving, but people look at it and they're like, "Oh yeah, I understand what it means," but they don't really get it. So my job was to like be the face of what that was. So I went to schools, corporate companies, and clubs, and I'd just start doing public speaking, and I'd share my story, like pretty much what we're doing right now, and just share my story and explain like how, if you fall off your surfboard or dive in shallow water, you can end up a quadriplegic, and this is what happens. And from there, I got this other guy. He started employing me to be like talking on mindset, suicide prevention, resilience, like pretty much just sharing my story, but just changing it a bit. And
Wow.
yeah, that's where I started the public speaking in 2007. But at 2005, I'd stopped smoking like weed and taking drugs. Made the decision, stopped that. I was still drinking alcohol, like binge drinking, but a lot better. Yeah, but it was that moment that I got that job that I got into that, and that's where I really started helping people. Um, yeah,
So maybe did helping people help save you?
100%. I found purpose in it. So what really kicked it off is just before I got that job, I was having a conversation with a friend, and he was having a really hard time. And I kind of just gathered up all the information and the stuff that had helped me at the time, and I gave him some advice, and it totally changed the direction of his life. And he's like, "Man, like you've really helped me," and I could see it. And I was like, man, there's something in this. Like, I can take the pain that I've been through and turn it into purpose. Does that kind of make sense? Like it's not a
Yes.
waste. Like I'm not gonna, I've been through everything that I've been through for a reason. And that reason is that I'll go through it, I'll get better, I'll find a way to get through it, and then I can help other people. And that's where the purpose came in. And then, sharing my story, and it was just turning pain into purpose. Everything I've been through, it can help someone else. And that's how I kind of look at it.
Wow, amazing. I that was just a thought that I'm like, wow, I think this is how you must have done it. Like, because helping people
Yeah,
is so amazing. It turns you away from your own troubles. It makes you feel better, and it helping other people find solutions is amazing. So,
yeah.
wow.
Whatever gets the focus off yourself. Like, yeah, like you're 100% right. Like it does. It really does. Like, yeah. And that was a turning point. That conversation with my friend. Um, yeah, and then obviously getting that job and then helping other people. But it did get a bit heavy sharing my story all the time. Like it was a bit
Yes.
depressing. And at the same time, I was coaching surfing. Got back into like, not surfing, but coaching surfers. And then it was like, so it was always a struggle because, I'd coach them, I'd be excited, but then I'd want to go in the water, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Like it
yes.
just get to the point where I'm sick of helping other people surf. I want to get in the water. So it's like, yeah, yeah,
So, where did all of this lead to then? Because right
yep,
now you're still coaching people, you're doing more than what you started with.
yeah,
How did you get there?
yeah. So from there, I went into sales as well, like working in sales and then training on like mindset of sales, emotional intelligence, managing your emotions during sales and stuff like that. And then to get to where I am now, like coaching people and helping people, I've always done it like just through conversations or one on one. I didn't charge for it. It wasn't a business. I'd always like just sit down with people and kind of look at their life and go, okay, you're here right now, like where do you want to be, how can we get there, what belief systems do you have. Like I always kind of did it with my friends and family, like I said, whether through conversations or just sitting down with them with a piece of paper, brainstorming and stuff like that. And then my wife, yeah, she's a business coach, so she helps women from scratch start a business. Like she's amazing. So and then yeah, it was only like a year and a half ago, I reckon it was. I was like, because I've been working in sales and stuff like that, not so much in the public speaking anymore. I was like, I really want to get back into inspiring and helping people. And she's like, well, let's just get everything that you've been through, all your knowledge, and let's create something out of it. And that's what we did. Yeah, we just created my mentoring and coaching thing. And yeah, that's how we got there. So yeah,
Wow. So you said wife. So is this the same person
yep.
you originally married?
No, no. So the other wife, she left in 2003. We got divorced. I had a few girlfriends here and there. And what happened was, I think I was about 29 years old. And I was just like, man, my relationships aren't working. Like, I'd always attract a nice lady, like, would have a relationship and, I was responsible. She was, responsible. It just wouldn't work out for whatever reasons. Like, yeah. And then at the age of 29, I was like, that's it. No more relationships. I need to work on myself. And that's where I came up with the whole, like, if you don't like, value, or respect yourself, no one else will. And I mean, there are people you're going to have to set boundaries with, but that's where I got the whole. I saw a counselor and she's like, Corey, like, how's your relationships going? I'm like, not very good. And she asked me one question. She says, let's not focus on that. How's the relationship with yourself? And I was like, what do you mean? It's great. It's perfect. It's like, I have a great relationship, but it wasn't. Like, you know what I mean? When she started asking me deeper questions and diving in, I was like, wow, I don't actually like myself. I don't value myself. I don't, yeah, anything. So through that, I stayed single for 5 years and I went to work on myself. And I was reading every single book on relationships, every single book on myself, developing and in that time, I was working on myself so hard. I was even seeing relationship counselors, and they're like, "What are you doing here, Corey? You're not even in a relationship." They were literally laughing at me. I was like, "But I want a relationship. My goal was to be married. I love being married. I love being with one. My goal was always to be with one person and be with that person forever. I know it sounds like a fairy tale, but that's who I am. That's what I like. And I was like, I want to achieve this goal. And every single relationship around me was very unhealthy, lot of toxicity. They'll pretend a lot. So I was like, nah, I got to work this out. And then I also worked out that by becoming that person, I was going to attract my future wife, on the same vibe. So working on myself, everything like that. And unbeknown to me, my wife at the same time on the other side of the world in El Salvador was doing the exact same thing. So she came from a family where her family was like the perfect family in public, pretending behind closed doors, toxic. Anyway, so long story short, she moved to Australia. She became a permanent resident. We met each other, and then yeah, from there we've been together like for 14 years, married for 10, nearly 10. And yeah, our relationship's not perfect. We don't pretend to be, but it's healthy. Like we work a lot on that. So I hope I'm answering your questions. I'm just excited
You
and
are,
probably
you
getting off track
are.
here. Like, yeah.
So now you have a coaching business. Tell me, like, what do you do in that business for people?
Yeah. So in other words, it first of all, I sit down with the client and the person, and we just have a holistic view of their life. We just look at their life, what it's like right now. We look at all the areas. So that could be financial, their relationships, their home environment, um, yeah, work, sport, recreation, all the areas of their life, because everything affects everything. So for example, like you can have, you could be living the dream in your dream job. It's got, your dream job's perfect, like going really well. But if your relationships are bad, that can affect your job. Like everything affects everything. But at the same time, nothing's ever going to be totally perfect. So we look at their whole life, we look at it, we kind of rate like where they are, but then we work out where they want to go. And that's when it starts getting into like, I'm asking lots of questions. And like we're working out their goals, we're creating a vision for their life. Where yeah, what do you want to achieve? And then I use the law of attraction. We believe in God, so it's for some people it's the law of attraction. If you believe in God, it's God. Yeah, not everyone believes in God, so I'm like law of attraction for you, but for me it's God. And then I just sit down and from there, when we're talking about all the things they want to achieve, And through my questioning, I can kind of work out where their mindset is. And I can work out their belief systems and what's kind of holding them back. And then through there, I just, yeah, just start asking more questions, start coaching them. And then what I've done is I've created this, I don't know, like these workbooks. And they're only little, only a couple of pages. So it's not like a book, but a little workbook of a couple of pages with questions, and we go through them. And that's just the foundation of like emotional intelligence, mindset, self-awareness, um, the relationship with yourself. And then another big part of it is an addiction to chaos and drama. I'm no psychologist or anything like that, but through that, yeah, I've found with a lot of people, like, yeah, an addiction to chaos and drama is like huge in their lives. Like, yeah. So I have a solid foundation of mindset, emotional intelligence, and we just work through those workbooks. And yeah, by the end, they're just like jacked up, they're excited, they got clarity, and they got the confidence, and they're like just going for it. Like they're just, yeah, it's really cool. So
That is awesome. That is awesome. So if
yeah.
someone wanted to reach out to work with you, how
Yeah.
would they find you?
So I'm just working on my Instagram right now, but yeah, through my Facebook, I do have like a web page. I don't know if I sent it to you, but it's got a link and it's got yeah, my bio and then everything about me and it's got contact details. And if someone's just interested in learning more, they're curious like how I can help them, yeah, we can just have a free call. Like and just a conversation. That's all it is. Like we'll just have a chat, just see where you're at, where you want to go, see if we're a good fit for each other. Yeah, and that's it.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that we put all that information in our show notes. And
Yeah,
Cory, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Your story is
thanks.
just amazing. And I'm so happy to hear from you and hear your story. And I'm just going to say one of the biggest takeaways from today's conversation is that from Cory, we've learned that the quality of your life is often determined by the quality of your relationship with yourself. And we spend so much time trying to fix our circumstances, our careers, our finances, and our relationships with others, but we need to change within because lasting change starts within. So when you
Yeah,
can improve when how you see yourself, how you speak with yourself, and how you show up for yourself, everything is will change. And we can see
yeah,
that in Cory's life. And I just want to thank you for joining us. And for those listening, thank you for listening to another episode of Built Not Burnt Out. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And until next time, keep building your body, keep building your mind, keep building your relationships and your life. I'm Melissa Peterson, and this is Built Not Burnt Out.
thank you.
Thank you.